Jiki Sen Chedan Kalashira. Chedan, that day in Kalsadi Dewan Jitimara. Jide Dewa Chinipa, take on Jide Dewa Chinipa, take a Jeden de Chumula. Jide Dungi Chinipa, take on the Teneru, the Penang and Pesachik Shuina, Penalumba Chicken Gote, Ra, Suzuki Tronsero Gotina. That Suzuki Pinada, Suzuki Pamadas, Tendegi, Chipula, de Dulata, Ani Suzuki, that Trunsogi, Mituzuki, de do that, Ra, Chilanga in the Chu in the Anichi Lapra in the Kanji, Tuzulachi, Matache, Suzuki, Kemechipo, Tadena, Ani Midula Gaumda, Ra, Ye Coralana, Korangi, Devade, Devad and Due, Chit, sometimes the Gala, Dunga the Jilla Coral and Jugur, to say Mitshamaga, could it Zito Mevacha, Chanjo Mevacha, Ra, Kisiti Lega, the Jurun which Nitonina, and the Yanjakula Raya Kalakabra, Ra, Korangi, Korangi, Deva Tila Teni, and the Jilla Dungichusa, Ra, more than the Roche. That me, Chisenchambo, Suzuki, Susuchipula Matake, Ra, Chiki, Lumbegi, Mimala in a Gangola in a Leptala in a Langa in Tatuche in a Ani Chitang, that they do courage in a Suzuki, Kemechipo Mata Pagila, Shenlas on Ma Tanidala, and it called me to Toncha, Kujucha, and this was a card on a Kibura. And it and that said Dilichipo like that, Jashmata, Achanjara, so the Buyopera. Chesang the Kaila Pentoda. Chesang Mikashi, Chesang Tagi Galasana, Michelle Chan Santa, and other sweet chigri, like later, tea loading on the Patoya, Chitra, on this year.
So now to continue with our discussion about the process of equalizing and exchanging the self for others, it is important to reflect on that verse if we are to make sense of this method of generating altruistic intention. To reflect on the verse, whatever happiness there is in this world comes from wishing happiness for others, and whatever suffering there is in this world comes from wishing happiness only for ourselves. And now, when we look at this verse, it should help us to overcome that manner in which we begin to immediately think that if I work for other people's welfare, if I try to address other people's concerns all the time, then who exactly would look after my own welfare and concerns? So try to think about it in this with this example. If there is a community leader in a position of power, and then if the community leader's motivation is only concerned about using that position and using that power to afford profit, gain to only his own family, friends, relatives, and so forth, then that naturally defeats the trust, confidence, and faith that the community places in the person in power. And as such, even though the community himself does it out of a sense of wanting to achieve happiness for himself and those who he calls his close and near ones, then in the long run it defeats the very purpose with which he undertook the tasks in the first place. Because over time, when confidence, respect, and faith begins to suffer, then there is conflict between the leader and the neighborhood or the community itself. And as such, where exactly is the initial happiness that one was looking for? Now, as opposed to that, then if a community leader really has the benefit and welfare of the community at its heart, then there is natural respect, trust, faith in the person. And as such, not only is this expressed towards the person himself, the family, relatives, his friends are natural beneficiary of this faith, trust that people express in him. So if we think about this, then we begin to understand that our own concerns, welfare is almost a natural byproduct of engaging in altruistic actions for others.
The more never is she fine? You can check. Ra. Maybe it's 9 이제.
She fallen sick or don't know. How could you mean this?
Last night she was fine. Yeah. We'll check
We'll
up.
see during lunch if she's dead or we'll just drop her a text or something.
Maybe check up on her.
밀에 타임다. 단다 되고 있나 단다네라. 세상에서 찍기라. 돼서 캐쳐버다. 심바 지금도 룸에 찍지 못 찍지도 되어라. 대하고다. 룸에리나.
If we have a roommate, then maybe we know like what exactly is going on. But since all of us are boarded up alone in one room each, then it's important, I think, from time to time to check up on each other, because we can fall sick at any point, at any time.
가정도 개인라지도 남도 있는 니마 gelati스 내게서라. 네 니마지 코난 산제도 추적하실 하려다. 아니 니제야 니제 답례에 제랑도 개개 로바도 냠도 도다. 카냐라리 간도 아니 개 타시도 나서있어라. 안되죠. 안질리 제 아니 개 코도 로바 이디가라. 명간테 인디시데 계속 매바이는 배제인가 차오라디. 근데 로충도 세상한테 미치지 되는 점자야 파츠 샤로다 샹제라오라 어디 있다야 개침버리.
So it is important to check up on each other from time to time, and because I am reminded of an incident that just happened a few days ago. We had a fellow teacher who in the past is said to have been stuck because he was sick in a toilet for a few hours and nobody realized that he was sick. But just a few days ago he was on a hiking trip with some other people, and then luckily he went with other people and he had high blood pressure, so he fainted, and then they were able to immediately take him to a hospital. But if he was all alone, then it might would prove a little bit different and very difficult.
다디체라 당한조 단다 다신냥지 생지단 뜻대로지라 인지민징한테 잘라 지글렘바나시 파 술레 파티 뜻대도 줘야 말스 이네 산나당당게 안데 신라 라 되어고 바나시 신라에 되어고 바다 라 동예면데 바임바나 코 동예면데 바임바데 일로 따야데 키쳔보제 다 당한조 진데명아 된주고네 생제단데 시바이나 pen tambokalana 마시파 텐템바 텐조와 용 샴바 히제라 아니 라상 레라 진짜 진데명아데.
Now, this is the manner in which we need to contemplate on the first method of generating the awakening mind of bodhicitta through the process of equalizing and exchanging the self for others. Now, in this process of equalizing and exchanging the self for others, it is important that we come to a radical acceptance of our shared humanity first, that all of us are similar in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering first. This is very, very important. Now, as opposed to the manner in which we look at our relationships as being transactional in their nature, through our visualization of taking upon the suffering, misery of others, offering our joy, happiness, and merit for others, then we should be able to shape our motivation, and eventually these motivation can be expressed in our actions. Now, moving on, we look at the second method of generating the awakening mind of bodhicitta, which is through what we call the 7 precepts of causes and fruit. So this is a gradual method or gradual mode of contemplation. So the 7 precepts of causes and fruit, as the name suggests, is first we cultivate the 6 fruits, and then at the end there is the result or the fruit. So the 7 fruits of precepts on causes are in this order. First, recognizing sentient beings as our mothers. 2, remembering their kindness. 3, repaying their kindness. 4, looking at all sentient beings with a mind of appeal. And 5th, developing love. 6th, developing compassion. And then 7th, developing a pure resolve.
자 인도 당가서 당다 이내 명아 되지고는 시험도가 심지 당지 마시 봐라 이제 오라. 다 심지 당지 간서 마시에래. 근데 그냥 네가 산했다나. 심지 당지 가긴 간서 말왜.
So now, when we are talking about the 7 precepts of causes and fruit, the first contemplation is recognizing all sentient beings as our mothers. Now, when it says recognizing all sentient beings as mothers, I want to ask you this question. Are all sentient beings our mothers? And should we identify all sentient beings our mothers?
Damn.
Depends, right? If you believe in the notion of reincarnation, then yes. If you don't believe in this, then it's kind of like hard to make sense of it, I guess.
Tini chewangachi kelange jena diene kuwaso lelaboyores. Yena chewangachi madunge jena di dis kamodare chagires.
심발라니 해디가.
Anyone else would like to share?
계속 개왕하실래니 이나라. 텔레라보레야 소라. 티 개왕하시 켈래니 이나 숨자탄지랑이 말두단 간데스도. 랑이 말했단다. 저랑 변에 당간서 단다 간사 세디 집어지 간사 줘라. 되게 마차게 열어서.
So now, if you do say that if someone accepts reincarnation, rebirth, past and future lives, then it is easy for them to recognize sentient beings as your mother. Then is it the case that sentient beings are your mother, your very own mother in this very life?
So, accepting reincarnation, does that mean that all sentient beings are your mother? Is that what you said?
That all sentient beings are your mother in this very particular life?
No.
Timaris.
노라. 다디 저 한마디게 마이네. 디 얘기 말하려고 그래. 저 심박이 말하려고.
So then when you say that sentient beings have been our mothers in our previous lives, then are we saying that sentient beings are mothers to us in this very life, or in a previous life they were our mothers?
They were our mother in the previous life.
Then chewa ngamala nganzuki amar re lagires.
그런 질라일.
I was going to say that there's, for me, sometimes when I think about this instruction, I think it can help sometimes to think about evolution and the shared genetics between all sentient beings, feeling that sense of biological relatedness as well.
Tini kurangi nganzuki simje tamje rangi mayin bala ngoy zinguri la jora. Mashi bala di samlo dendeji tana ya pembo da udusra. Chewa ngachi la ni patharing bo mandone ra. Nganzuki da do seri to ne evolution la geje shege ra. Simjingi perim. Nima tiu ne michare la perim do ji ra. Tinde ko la samlo patang de zamba nganzuki dubcha gi ze genes la jora. DNA la di da dubcha yoyu dabu da mangche do. Jaja gubju chibare la geje shege yora da. Dela pa samlo ta ni zama nganzuki ni subu gi dubcha korang la ni tumung gi ze yoro was. Cheza ni simjen thamje da susu gi mare la de la samlo de chone ta na ya putus.
근데 단다 소소 가르땅 와있는 지kin 심지 단지 수수 예부 소토에 담보 드니 산다고더라. 먼저 파 심바 파 샤쇼르 누쇼르 녜다르는 파 파토라마이. 근데 DNA 제네 가르산 땅에는 스르르 소토에 참아슬 기바다 투에 드니 소토는 산 가르탄 단디고라. 지 가시 제왕 하시기 돈 단한디고래. 가시 지기 소소 지 제당한서 페나한서 띠우데 데무토 칼로지 심지기 주니 말레지라셔라. 안저에 단거 바이올로지를 실어서 디 가르먼데 데란저라. 근데가 산다나 간지 만지 간저 있어 루루조 토야지 산다한테나 디디다. 라.
So that is exactly the purpose of this instruction. Now, the manner in which the purpose of this instruction is help us to overcome the manner in which we strictly identify along the lines of differences. Always saying that he's from the west, I'm from the east, and so forth. And as such, we fail to appreciate that we are all human beings in the end. So that's the purpose of this instruction, to understand that shared humanity, to understand that we are all one. and to create that kind of intimacy in the manner in which we relate to others. That's the purpose of this instruction. So if it is helpful for you to think about rebirth as a means to accept this oneness, then it's good. And then if you also can think biologically about the genetic makeup, how in a sense when we look at the composition of our DNA, then there is not much difference from where it comes from and its composition as it stands now. And if this helps us to appreciate the oneness of all life forms, then that also serves the purpose.
세상 군두이네 가디네 치료 탱리래 당 하모니래 송다 디카르나 미임바 찍주다 투나 라 소소 아마이마 따마투나 나나츠 미임바 찍바다 아니 심제임바 찍바로 덴데타나 간지 가지 있다면 주루루 제기 대시지네 야보다 나도 간도 미 거르시올라네 보고 춘주 째운데 콘솔라딘데 연제요 말에 보고 좀 쩨모쩨서 냠도 제 칼로다 코란저 제 파츠 제 사야드 파트 에네친 데워라 때 밀레디야 뜨지 쳔모잖아 출루디르라도 출루데데데 numba데데데 아니 지게야 쳔모잖아 녜일합다 케일합다 녜 나무도 코에 나미 녜 초바다 코에 초발은 먼저 가리 그 엔데 파치도다 근데 많이 간다 참 찌죽다 두이나 아니 간도 잠닝나 지 시대외나 간지라 되게 팽이라 먼저 연지 마보 땅데 타마타스 파파파파 짜가더나 니 소수치부 라데 코주길로 레오다 라 근데 많이 치다 간도 초발을 샤신다 근데 고르데 녜 초바도 야고 코 초바도 팜초 근데 그 삼탄데 제팜다 근데 요 나야고 코 쪼글레 근데 그 사람 마보 따데는 아니 근진자니 갈리갈리 지금 메도마서 야바 쳇도다 단단 lumbar 시데미야다 근데 뭐저 진주 같은 랍수티에데 패키지마다 먼저 사쇼 카와도아이나 보고 진주라 칼로 지당이 메이바데시다 아니 ಸಮ치바임바 근데 단단네 라투네 야보다 제가 단대기 뒤줄에 지금 마투도 자데 근데 젠자데 간에 태올라는 예마야 콘주 푸 진이 제주라 라 근데 단대기 고테도 라 근데 인디가라 단단 안조 가란스기 야 소소기 전체 파트 소소 보고 있나래 소소기 지 저어 참고 있나래 소소기 게투 있나래 당 안조기 도줄 러서 제데 잔이 시대 오야라 안조래 안조 사마는 게도 잠잠 안조 사가 미치부지 가르치 두래 나지 베도 거랑 롱바기 고테네 말에 나 베도 지글랍다도 든디 랍다 좀 겐겐네 말에 예 가르치 투에로 삼 세주차야 말아 안조 미래 모래라 게라 라 소소기 니 실로도 반도데 부고도 직주방에 받친데 제주 말 엔데라 패키지 말다 라 지선 잠니디 다다 안조 미 둥지 로주라라 띵한테 사마라 오라 티창마 야포존의 시대 바페 레라 안조 미래 모래라 아니 칼은 게는 스티다 this is something with the picture.
So now when we reflect on this first instruction, it is important to make sense of it, not simply literally, but to make sense of the purpose of this instruction. And that is why His Holiness the Dalai Lama always stresses the importance of spiritual and communal harmony in the world. Because without harmony in our interactions and relationships, it is impossible for us to aspire to world peace and so forth. And harmony, and if we are to achieve harmony in our interactions with others, then we must first be able to relate to human beings as human beings. Unless and until we fail to relate to human beings as human beings, then we will fail to treat human beings as human beings. And this is exactly the purpose of this instruction, that we must be able to relate to other human beings as human beings, not strictly along the lines of differences. Because if you look at all these differences, these are mental constructs and social constructs. And if we insist that we have to identify along these mental and social constructs and along the differences, then it is impossible for us to really treat each other as human beings, relate to each other as human beings, because we will insist on identifying along the lines of these differences, and then sooner or later this gives in to selfish concern, that you only want to identify with a particular set of ideas. You only want to identify and work for a particular community, your own community only. And so where it is important that in our interactions with others, other communities, that we first relate to them as a human being, as a human being to human being. Then we can learn to treat each other as a human being. Now, without that, it is a little bit difficult to aspire to world peace and so forth. And as such, it is important to understand that maybe we have the attitude that how can I effectively contribute to something so big as world peace when I am myself not in a position of power, leadership, and so forth. That is maybe not the attitude to adopt. Change is cultivated at an individual level. Change is affected at an individual level. And at an individual level, if we are able to treat each other as human beings, relate to each other as human beings, and advise and guide others to assume the same attitude. For example, if you have children, to teach them to look at other children as human beings, not strictly as someone from being as being from some different background. Because when we look at it effectively, children, when they are young, they do not care about social, religious, any of these kind of backgrounds. They get along perfectly together. Then when they grow up, all these societal constructs begins to create an identity for them, which is strictly along the lines of differences. And as such, this kind of destroys that kind of harmony that there was already there when they were young in the manner in which they related to fellow children. And when we look at all the conflict, wars, and so forth that we see in this world today, then when we look at the leaders, politicians who are politicians and leaders, then we have to understand that when they were young, they weren't educated about these core human values. And as such, it is our responsibility individually that we impart the importance of these core human values if we have children, then if not, to our nieces and nephews, to kind of impart the importance of these core human values. And if we are able to do this, then we indeed have hope of achieving true world peace through understanding the importance of harmony in our relationship with others.
Chezang ngazo ngara michuma ji sayam dra ngazo khara na ngara salange pene ngara ye person do shi na kantu chitu do kharchi na khazan ta dawa khashi jingel ta ngari le dawa singa shiter tidu ngazo college Boston college la da base college da ani kare high school yamun la shidu undu saman do tidu ga zamza letu ja do ja nga chitu chitu ne mamu zangu dra ani kashi zamza tidu gengo do tidu yang 조정아 되는 점자 마무 드레 너디가 라게 안다 러두도 라이나 러두는 college 부라 건조 패키지 첨보라 마무 패기 선자래 디야마제 아니치 college 부고도 제컴 라면 도 페나 자나는도 코리안도 자멘도 다 아리 코란서데 임 바처라 근데 지금 미 마무 잠데사 아니 다 신예전에서 college 레서데 가로야 레서거라 와 근데 레디 아니 게다디 고급디도 되네 아니 결혼도 마무 패기 선자래스라 마음바이 딱간도 시대대 우마오도 찬스 라파요레스 마음바 찬스 양 고체 차르고레스 얘니 찬스 제컵 담마다 로존 체사데 소소 월로도라 도도 아니 찬스 제컵 다른 디치 가서 내가 제니다 같이 지나래 신진다 신령다 다 마음바지 차용으라 드디어가 아니 찬스 파든 대화제 약보치 아니 잠니 시대때 찬스 라발 도스라 근데 인자 아니 찬스 단단히 삼았다네 아니 나랑 참을 시대를 가기도 무시 마투 메겐 증대니 지 막타만디 왔다 나간서 스카이 가기문다 근데 찬스 라발 요래라니 레두드들은 예 있던데 라바이라 그 팽게 왜냐면 수수꼴로 남아다 봐 이거는 아니 다가나시기 데미 gem바드들 도디가 카르라와이나 아니 찬스기 보이는데 저 참모 카리나 그래서 랍지 줘버렸어 라 먼저 파기 도디가 센바 강에 테딩이도 다 뉴스 두자다니 베드니 마음 통고도 근데 통고도가 따티저 먼저 마유야디 나란스가 라발라 단단히 마음 발라 khande so mi nganzo la ba le ro sa ju de sa ba tan jo tang tu ma ra maung ba de nganzo khande so nganzo chama ge de gala nga mi khejang ji nge chuma ji nge chi tu ma na sa yam da gengo go pa che re ge ma la ja an nam du mi chuma ji shu so le ga che de ni na korang ni ko sul tu ne nganzo chama la ge da de sam ta de pe khejang ra.
So I try to live up to that aspiration that we all, as individuals, can affect change and contribute to world peace. When I was in the States last year for about 4 or 5 months, I had the opportunity to visit a few colleges in the Boston area. I visited Boston College, Beard College, and then I was also able to visit some high schools. And now in those colleges and high schools, there were gatherings of maybe 100, 200 students at each of these addresses that I made. So I stress the importance that as the youth, of today, you are the future seeds, and as future seeds, it is important that we do realize our shared humanity. And since they are already in colleges and high schools, they are somewhat already educated, and now they can think for themselves. And as such, I stress the importance that if we are to achieve true peace in this world, then it entirely rests on their hands now, that because they are the future seeds. And it is important that they appreciate these core human values, these shared humanity, the shared humanity that we have, because it is indeed the case that these young students will grow up to be community leaders, grow up to be presidents, prime ministers of their nations later on, and as such, it is important they understand at this formative age the importance of these core human values. And as they go back to their own countries, because they were a student from a lot of different countries, of course from the United States, but from Japan, Asia, so forth. So as they go back to their own countries, it is important that to understand that nobody really desires and wants war, conflict, and so forth in this world. What we all do appreciate and want in this world is true peace. So as such, as future seeds, it is important for them to understand understand these core human values and shared humanity. And then similarly, when I also had the opportunity to address gatherings of many elderly people, and I noticed that many of them have mental distress and mental suffering, but I still found it important to address this to them, that as elders, as people of an older generation, it is important not to hold on to resentments from the past, and whatever has passed is already in the past, and now we have to work towards creating a better future for the younger generation. So as such, it is important to impart the values, the core human values to the future generation. So as such, it's the responsibility of all individuals to guide, motivate, and advise their own children, nieces and nephews about understanding that we all have a shared humanity.
다 콘즈 참말라 저지 심지어니 마셔고라나 깔까버 참마 남바 말지 하고 말아 세상에 미분듯이 돈 쓰르르잖아래 아니 저 정하실래미 캘린지는 마시베인듯이 돈을 다 간지 든데지가라라 간지 만지 미디 시대다 바페진데 돈을 가른 데시샤는데 거 간데기 라 안데네제 저 땅아서 단다 마시바 라운데가 단다 코랑이 숨선 대가란데 안저기 심지어 단지 단단 얘기를 পেলে লিডে ছেবা지 দাওয়ার মাসিবে দি মারেলা나 말아라 가서는 나를 마직 못해요 말은 알았지 이내야 얘 이겨왕 하면 하다 남바임에 남바임에 인자 니 이겨왕 하시 켈레 오장 하시 켈레는 안줄라 겨 가지기 겨래는 디지긴 알아 마여라 근데 인디가라니 떼겨 토마면 방안서 남베기 토 슝토나시네 저 토마면 봐 장갑지 마토 진 나와 근데 인디가라 아니 얘기 ngalaya manga ama tanggatsi matwe chora tiba yuba nanshigi Tende yobaina ani tande madige rol ngala khande ta jong chi pene bugu chunju ga za chenpo cha de ma ta ne ra bugu chunju ga la ani che ama nge ne khia da ama se de karya ya te ore ku karnya nya te ore dile sende be ra ya te tambo de pe de ko ta ga de pe la ro na tenje ya bo me de ga la pe ama ina ti dolu chobu na la nye go ra ta de ba la ina de san bugu la chi cha chen ya bo do sang ma do ya bo ra 제가 dindig이가 안에 배 칼로다 간줄에 감버로 저투도 되면요 다 안에디 칼라사다만에 나면요 되게 둘루되지만은 차면요 배 니체니도 쫑쫑 되기도 마 파마도 단단하서 단 하고다 라 먼저 첨부차네 아니 아마 심바도 가르치기 봤다오나 아니 간저 아메 든디치어 근데 인자 가르치므로샤스 라 근데 인디가라다 단대 하면 되게 다감스까지 제는 짱 하면 아메 다가랑 고란질 다 고유라 빠벤 지기 내당라 빠베기 제어라 라 진짜 근데 이딩가라 간주 아니 란식이 센 스타니 부르 리다 와 뭐 딘디 진다 마조 숨지다 마시발아야 되게 고바데 딘디 인사라.
So now, so when I had the opportunity to address these gatherings of the older and younger generation in the States, then I found it important to share the message of our humanity, because in this kind of audience, it is not the case that everyone accepts rebirth, everyone accepts or believes in the Buddhist principles and Buddhist teachings. And as such, I found it important not to talk about recognizing all sentient beings as your mothers and so forth, but to simply share the message of our humanity, of these core human values, because that's the purpose of these instructions actually, that we do all actually want peace and harmony in our lives. We don't want conflict and distress in our lives. So as such, it is important to appreciate our core human values, our shared humanity. And that is exactly what the purpose of these instructions are. When these instructions tells us to reflect and to recognize all sentient beings as our mothers, it is advising us to recognize our shared humanity first. And now, with that being said, for the purposes of our discussion, since it's a spiritual discussion we are having, we look at the instruction closely from the Buddhist perspective. So, when it says that the first of these 7 precepts of causes and fruit is recognizing all sentient beings as our sentient beings as our mothers, then it comes from the Buddhist belief, or belief that time itself is beginningless. So as such, life itself is beginningless. And if life and time itself is beginningless, then we have had countless mothers in our previous lives. And as such, even though sentient beings are not our particular mother, for example, me, Dawa Dolma, I have only one mother who gave birth to me in this particular life. But if we reflect on the fact that time itself is beginningless, and as such, our life itself is beginningless, then as such, we had countless mothers in our previous lives. It is important to reflect on the kindness of our mothers. For example, we have to make sense of the first 2 instructions: recognizing sentient beings as our mothers and remembering their kindness. So when we look at the manner in which a mother cares for a child, in the manner in which they raise up a child from the moment the child is conceived in their womb to the moment they give birth to the child, even to the moment when the child grows up to walk about a little bit on their own, then the mother is trying to offer the best to the child, the best food, the best clothes. She's trying to do whatever is in her capacity to offer the best care and concern for the child. And now it is important to extend that kind of reflection to other sentient beings who have been our mothers in our previous lifetimes. Because just as our mothers and the mothers that we see in this life care and nurture a child with care for and nurture a child with such love, compassion, and concern, And similarly, sentient beings who have been our mothers in our previous lives, then they have also, within their own capacity, done the same for us when they were our mothers in our previous lives. So as such, it is important to remember their kindness. Now, through this kind of reflection, we are trying to overcome the manner in which we create a gap or a space between ourselves and others. If we are able to reflect in this manner, then naturally others, herein referring to sentient beings, grow closer to us. There is intimacy in the manner in which we relate to others. Less.
제가 된대지 제다 다 기지양 지장하지 개mel에 니나야 안주이 미세니다 다 간다 잠리다 지게 시 늦어이나라 나게 근데 칼로 다 심제이나래 뜻삼을 하다 라 god tu인라다 되는 중지라고라 타기마 수셔절라고라 근데 인자 데켈레마이나 디더라 가이스나 간주 창말 하이마 트윈 하이 준마 제주나 간주 딱 할라나 간주마 빙게르다 라 조조다 아짜다 아 근데 잔저래도 타기마 주진 딜마 때문에 중셔주 간주 창마 빙게르다 근데 진니 빙게지기 번두시샤나 간주 창말 하이 투주이나 달 하이 준마 제주이나라 준샤주이나 간주 창마 제중다 근데 잔저래 이거라 되게 버루라 간주 세워체다 근데 타도는데 아제 근데야 무슨 maybe 싫어이다 선 근데 따와이나라 인지민지 나마 마이나 세상 상의 간지 가르기 돈 따와이나 간지 잠이 시대 중에 상식 땅투는 디기다 라
So now, similarly, if you do not accept rebirth, if you are someone who believes in a creator or creation, then I think reflecting on that belief can also help us. Reflecting even on a belief such as creation can also help us to overcome the manner in which we always identify along the lines of differences. For example, if you believe that all of us are created in the image of a God, then we all do come from one source, and as such, we are all brothers and sisters in effect. And as such, it doesn't really make sense for brothers and sisters to harm each other, to hurt each other. That kind of, even reflecting on that kind of belief can help us to accumulate the basis for achieving true world peace.
제가 다 들리신다. 아주 다 단한 아주 남베이 추토라 아니 상주기 셈라디가라. 아니 지진의 명아 된고는 센지도 심저다니 마시바데 정하시기 전에다 소소 정하마 마제마니 비치자 메인자 마시바레스 디두가랑 아주 가된 정인자 아니 베다 가든 된디 치무이나 라. 다 마시바 텐텐말아야 다 된디 가든 치무지 짱이나 다 아주 가든들 미 우네게 미 상주지나 가든 파소라 가든 탱고라 라 템바장지 마인바라 아니 가든들 바 아주기다 텐텐바 텐소알라 디가라 다 우네게 콜라 강인 냥데와이나 들라바 록바치야다 라 당주 지 나자 중나 직직타만디 버지나 지 고야메 바이나 사야메 바이나 칸다 지 타만디 버지도 콜라 샤차 치고라 라 텐텐바스 텐텐바 텐소알라 바
So then, now coming back to our discussion about the 7 precepts of causes and fruit. So first, we reflect, we recognize all sentient beings as our mothers because through beginningless time, they have served as our mothers in our previous lives. And as such, it is important to recognize them as our mothers. On that recognition, it is also important, secondly, to remember their kindness. By reflecting on the manner in which a mother raises a child, we should be able to remember that since all sentient beings have served as our mothers in our previous lives, it is important that we also remember that sentient beings have shown us the same kindness. And then on the basis of that, we should also be able to repay, come to repay their kindness. That's the third cause, repaying their kindness. Because if someone who has shown us true kindness, who have cared for us, who have nurtured us, are themselves suffering, then it is our responsibility to show them the same kindness, to care for them when they are sick, when they are suffering. So that's the third cause, repaying their kindness. That's
다 이용기 이용래들 간대질 나오서는 시당 간족이 ngarazu khaila tan hakoda pugo chunju dini ra soso phama dongi 간대지네 미션바기 chang pa ma jire ni re la na ra pugo de magawa chigda khaisana pugo khalana ama de tachep jusa na kore ra de korona ka de chimo yimba korona nyebo yimba da korona ta naja jin chitin jisashi ama da de de ngala ko senta nyebo shudo ra 미션바지 저 ama jire khajo najo re mi jo dola ko magaya che ni ama la chiglas la pe de chigda ti sunjoro chingda 카리스나 그 소소게 맞데 소소라 카디쳔보다 소소라 디딱 남자진데 야 카디쳔보라 시고 테마시네 간다 콜라 니보다 콜라 째워테 디비차니 라시 콜라 예동와시 통다 봐 딘데 땅아저기야 딘데기야 소소기 짱 하시는 바 하망하면 소소가 아마이 마테온도 갈라 라시 예동와시 땅 봐 딘데 소소를 츠카디쳔보 임잖아 라시 야부 통다 코페 야버랑 갈래 야부제래 제부도 갈래고데 간지 양한테 예동와시 땅다 라 다든데 예동와 따시 시들라 아니 샹발라디가라 아니 동네다 마테는 봐 대화다 티로치나 아니면 로지고라 딘데위들 샹바 봐다 딘데위 아니 콜라 카디나 나셔지는 콜라 대화 중으로 치나 사면들 샹바제 아니 그 동네기 나데나 딘데 동네들 티로치나 찌마로 냠블로지 봐 다든데 딘데기로들 아니 힌지
Now, moving on. On the basis of recognizing all sentient beings as our mothers, we begin to remember their kindness, and on the basis of remembering their kindness, we work towards repaying their kindness and reflect on that. And now, in that, the fourth cause is looking at all sentient beings with a mind of appeal, looking at all sentient beings as appealing. Now, this is very, very important because when we look at the relationship between a mother and a child, it might be the case that even when others begin to speak ill of a child's parent, saying that they are physically, speak ill of the physical appearance of the mother or the parents, then the child itself is very defensive. Child itself doesn't get caught up on the physical appearance of their parents or mothers, because the child spends time with the mothers or the parents, and as such is in an intimate relationship with the mother or the mother or the parents, and as such, even when others begin to speak ill of physical appearances or speak ill of the mother or the parent, the child still looks at the mother with appealing, as very appealing to them. And as such, they are defensive when others speak ill of their parents or mothers. So similarly, based on our reflection on the three previous points, we should also be able to look at all sentient beings as appealing to our minds.
티가 이트마치 카르스는 내가 춘주가라 니 아마테 깜바데 쳔버르셔 미시마다마다 테니미 티 통세 아샹다 아크다 투마 몸미 tumba기 미드 쯤쯤이라 캬마 깜바 켄자도 라라시나 슈니기야 단단다 거거이데 저래 그런 뜻그 만들어 쳔버르셔 미시마 근데 고야지문다 이내야티 가르나 춘주가라 소소라 땅가라 샹수쟁아 소소쟁아라 가디니 자와주라 티요 디기 아니 트라니 아니 딘데르다 미시바질랑 가서 지그레니르라나 마가야 지깁니다 라 다디 코라던 단데 친구여서 상종의 제바디 하코인자 안데르 손저로 제 텔라 마가와지 딘지기다.
So I am at this point reminded of an incident in my own childhood. My mother had particularly big feet. And then as such, my uncles and my relatives used to make fun of this, saying that your mother has really strange feet. And when I hear this, I used to be a little bit hurt, you know. And now, if I think about it right now, they were just stating facts, that she indeed did have particularly big feet. But I didn't really look at that as strange or big, because she was my mother. I was intimate with her. I appreciated the love, care, and concern she showed me. So as such, I look at her as totally appealing, notwithstanding her large feet. So this is the kind of appeal that we are talking about. That is a consequence of the intimacy that we build in our relationship with others. So we should be able to look at all sentient beings with such appealing eyes.
다 니지로 사사 다 하상라디가라 다 간저기 변은 미지 동일라 나데나 라 다 하상라디 간저기 단데 디데샤워 저당 이양티 시단들 니야레 변은 하상디 파타오당 니지디 마타오로 지단 샤단지라 이내야 간다 니지디 동일라 테로체는 찌마로서는 파게지 동일라 나데나 테 동일라 바 카드 테로체는 페 테로체는 야갈라 가알라 삼에 데레글로체 바코데오시나 아니 학생들이 파기신 동일은 나데나 디 동일은 나데데 나라랑기 쩌고서야 라 페슨 가르샤라나 언제 추나로라 보고지 추나 키도게나 추첨보나라 다 고시요 말다 제베기 단다레와 저 투네 코스에 이래 근데 진내가라 다 마디 디 추칼 주디고래 라오다 다 마드 로고 메위키지라 가지 다 깨자는 게 보고듯이 자로실라니 깨자로 저 추칼 주디에로 라 다 파타오디 가르샤나나 람사거로 첨도래라 라. 다 디산다 간저 그따와네 주제신한테 보이는 범위는 수치는 첨도다. 라. 라. 양잔저 범위를 만배치바 말데. 나는 되지 로고 첼레다 간다마데 간지 희네 부두즈 데스 로고 쳐야다. 가리는 지도. 라. 만다와지라.
So now, moving on the basis of looking at all sentient beings with a mind of appeal, then we need to develop love, cultivate love for sentient beings, other sentient beings. Now, love herein is a desire or a wish to see others be happy and be with the causes of happiness, free from suffering. That is love. Love is a wish to see others be happy and be with the causes of happiness. And then similarly, on the basis of love, one also develops compassion for others. Compassion herein refers to a wish to see others free from suffering and the causes of suffering. And this compassion is almost an unbearable feeling or unbearable sensation that you experience when you see others suffering, and then you develop the wish that they should be free from suffering. Now, on the basis of these, one develops a pure resolve. And now, in the classical kind of example, they use this example. They say that compassion is like the mother, and the pure resolve is like the father. So, pure resolve herein refers to, on the basis of developing love and compassion, now you develop a determination, a resolve within yourself that you will take it upon yourself to free others from suffering, alleviate the suffering of others. That is the pure resolve that is being talked about here. So in the classical kind of metaphor that they use to describe compassion and pure resolve, they say that compassion is like the mother and pure resolve is like the father. And they use this kind of analogy or example, that if there is a child drowning in the river, then the mother is on the riverbank and she has that unbearable wish or unbearable sensation that the child be saved from the flowing river. And then the father is the pure resolve who immediately jumps into the river to save the child. So that's the kind of resolve one must develop on the basis of contemplating on the six causes.
디 부도 범무라 인지데 말라 지나간 저 다운데 남도 대지 제바도 도와 봐 가스나야 그냥 아주 직대무로 지지 선바초우지 따위나 범무딜람상 미슈단 땅대로 든들리다 봐 부도 범무인제 냠도 따위나 파기 따사기 휴도 유내당 쪽으로 범무디 미치 땅대로 선발을 직 초슈지 직레지도 부두자한테 내매봐라. 그냥 직강이로 지 카투테오나 람성지 총거나 부두주 총토야로다. 라. 아니 법무대지야. 네 뭐 제바도 이나야 아주 법무라 통주다 녀주드네 말다라.
So when the classical texts use this kind of example, it is not to it's not a sexist kind of teaching, because it's just an example to highlight the natural sensitivities and how they are embodied in human beings. So, for example, because in this day and age, anybody can learn swimming. So if someone is actually drowning, it doesn't matter. Someone who knows how to swim can effectively jump and save them. But when we are using this kind of examples, we're trying to highlight the nature of compassion and the nature of resolve that is being talked about here. And so with that being said, it highlights that natural sensitivity of women, females have with regards to developing love and compassion. For example, we could be watching the same movie and then girls, women are prone to prone to cry when the movie is a little bit sad. That kind of highlights the natural sensitivity of females, that they are more sensitive, or to say more in tune with their feelings, to use a modern term, whereas maybe boys, men, they do not really think too much. They jump straight, to do whatever they want to do. So just kind of highlighting that kind of sensitivity between the two genders. So now I'm not saying that there is like a difference in gender. There is a difference in the capacity of gender, but we still need to appreciate the kind of natural sensitivity, the difference in the natural sensitivity that there is in gender, in the manner in which they relate to situations and so forth. So now we will stop here and maybe make time for one question. And now we have covered the 7 precepts of causes and fruit. Are you able to identify these 7?
I think I missed the 6 and 7.
Hmm?
I missed 3.
Okay, we list them out first, okay? Recognizing sentient beings as our mothers, 1. Remembering their kindness, 2. 3. Repaying their kindness. 4. Looking at all sentient beings as appealing. 5. Developing love. 6. Developing compassion. And 7th is understood as the fruit itself, developing pure resolve. Now, are you able to make sense of it? Maybe one of us can list out the 7 precepts of causes and fruit. So, Shubham. Huh?
Say those 7 fruits.
7 precepts of causes and fruit.
Recognizing sentient beings as mothers,
Hmm?
remembering their kindness,
Hmm?
repaying their kindness,
Hmm?
looking at all sentient beings with a mind of appeal,
Hmm?
seeing them as appealing, cultivate love for them,
Hmm?
developing compassion for them, and developing pure resolve for
Hmm?
them.
Were you able to note these 7 precepts of causes and fruit down now? Okay, Terry, Geshema wants to ask you, what are the 2 methods through which one can generate the awakening mind of bodhicitta?
So equalizing self with others.
Hmm?
That's the second method. And we tend to do that first.
Hmm?
And then the first method is this one, the 7 precepts
다가랑.
Tene molati de jinde menga de mardi passion to the carres. Pomu de.
Geshema wants to hear from you. What are the 6 great perfections?
6 great perfections.
The 6 perfections.
Kazan de de.
We discussed this, the paramitas, the
Maybe
6
chuna ninja
perfections.
both jand together.
Both of you, Geshema wants to ask.
So sushi na disarene.
Anyone else would like to have a go at it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, she said 2. Maybe you can.
Enthusiasm as wisdom, the last one. So ethic, generosity, patience, enthusiasm, wisdom. There's one missing.
Concentration.
Concentration.
Ta chini da lam nga de kar.
Now the 2 of you. What are the 5 paths?
Accumulating merit.
Hmm?
The path of preparation. The path of seeing, true seeing. The path of meditation. And then the path of no learning.
First
Demba
one
shi-
is the path of accumulation, not just merit, accumulation of both wisdom and merit.
Demba shi de kar.
What are the 4 noble truths?
The truth of suffering, origin of suffering, sensation of suffering, and the path.
Okay, thank you so much. Ra, tang az khala shao.
Okay.
Ra. Ani
Okay.
tanda churang zu table ta ne la ni khashi do ra. Table ta mo din la sharu chira. Tanda pe aw.
So thank you so much. Now we'll break for lunch, but before we break, I would like to say this. Many of you have to refer to your notes still. Don't keep it in your books. Keep it here in your...
Mune di pe cheba da. Te dina yuna ra samata ya ra. Te na pen to ri ya ti tu ya pre. Ine en zamza din te pinga to card no yoma ra. Dina lu yin su card no sa ta ya ra.
So it is important that we remember this in our own minds rather than always making use of our notes. Because if we have this in our mind, then we can reflect on them anytime, as opposed to having to resort to looking at our notes. Because our notes will not be with us at all times. Okay, do please enjoy your lunch.